back to another episode of the Ella Opa Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Fudas, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Ari and Foti. Foti and Ari, interchangeable. I just found out you guys had like a meet cute, like forever ago. I had no idea that you guys have been friends for so long.
Yes, but the
Uh,
rule of thumb
too
is
long.
Ari Foti. Ari first, always. Please.
Foti, thoughts?
Well, after so long, I'm tired of listening to his, complaining. So, and to his credit, his name does begin with the letter A.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will try and remember that. So, anyways, I know that I typically ask you guys what you want to talk about, but I have ulterior motives today. And I want to talk about Athens. What do you guys think?
That's a coincidence because that's exactly what I wanted to talk about.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Sopa.
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 You know where I learned that word? Greek soap operas.
Oh.
Sopa.
Yeah, I think you could learn a lot more than just that word from Greek soap operas.
For sure. For sure. But yeah, Athens, Athens, Athens. I think, as you guys being Greek Americans, you definitely have had a different experience with the city than me. But one thing that we all have in common actually is that the city was kind of like dumped on us. It wasn't a choice. It wasn't a choice like to be like, hey, I would really like to visit Athens. I would really like to find out about the city. No, it was just like, here's Athens, work with it. But I want to hear your guys'
Yeah.
history with the city because it's different than mine.
Well, let me say that my experience with Athens is having a full Greek family that came here and a very, very big Greek family that's still over there. And so I heard a lot about Athens even before I ever went. I'm not going to get into me being a very little kid, but let's talk like when I actually could like kind of understand what travel was and we're in a different country and different people, different experience, different customs, different everything.
So what is this, like age 35? What are we talking about?
Last year. Um, but like, let's say like when I got into my kind of teenage years, my vision of Athens was you got to start in Athens. That's where the airport is. That's where you land. Everything starts in Athens, and then you get the hell out and go do whatever you're going to do. Um, but we did have, we had a house in Greece for many, many, many years, and most of my younger years were spent at that house 3 months at a time in the summer, and it was just outside of Athens in a place called Vrilisia, which is kind of near Kifisia, if you guys are familiar.
Mhm.
Um, it's like right next to Chalandri, right next to Kifisia. Really nice place, loved it. So that being there kind of made me understand like Athens is not that bad, but I wasn't in Athens. I was in like a suburb. Um, and then when we go into Athens, everybody will always be like, it's dirty. It's, you have to be careful. There's pickpockets. There's this and that. So I always had that kind of mental image of like the just a grimy city that you kind of just you go through it to get to other places, blah blah blah. That was my experience.
So
Now,
your
as
experience wasn't that different than,
well,
somebody visiting for the first time, because
yeah,
that's what they hear as well.
I kind of feel that that's like a common experience for people. And but now as like an adult, and we no longer have our house there. uh, it's kind of exciting getting into Athens because now I understand more of like, arts and architecture and history and all this stuff. And I mean, that's a bucket list for all humans. I think they should go and see Athens and see the Parthenon and see Lykavitos and see, Plaka and all these places, like a bucket list. I'm not saying go there every summer, but it's something that I really do appreciate now in my older years. So anyway, that's in a nutshell my experience.
No, I love hearing that because I had no idea that like where exactly your house was and how, you heard the same things that most people hear. So, Poti, what's your
Yeah.
history with the
Uh,
city?
I can echo a good portion of what Ari was mentioning. In our younger years, early teens to mid-teens, visiting Greece in the summer as a family, I have a little bit of a different destination, final destination in Greece because my parents are from the island of Kalimnos. And for us, it was either two things. One is arrive at the airport and fly immediately from the airport into Kos because there wasn't an airport back then. So we never stepped outside the airport most of the times when we were in Athens.
Oh, interesting.
And
Which
usually,
is a really good logistical plan. I'm gonna squeeze that in there.
yeah, and well, now there's an airport in Kylimnos, so you can go
Yeah.
directly. But back then, the only time that we would go to Athens was if there was some family member that needed us to take them back for a medical appointment in the city of Athens. And back then, it was that whole feel and vibe of being grimy, smoggy. Our parents used to hold us tight to them so that no one would kidnap us. The pickpocketers, the crazy taxi drivers that you have to be careful with, be careful where you eat, yada, yada, yada. But then as I got older and started to go to Greece on my own with my friends in my early 20s, and we made it a point to stay in Athens a few days before island hopping, we got to see a different side of Athens because of friends who had cousins who lived in different neighborhoods. And I'm like, wow, I never knew that Athens was nice outside of what we were being told. And as the time went on, it was beautiful to see the development over time of these great neighborhoods of Athens and what the government did with uh, the new museum and that whole area, how clean it is now, all the beautiful boutique hotels and restaurants, like they've taken it to another level. But similar to what Ari said, as kids growing up, it wasn't a desirable place for us to be, even as Greek Americans.
Yeah, and I think both, parallel experiences for you guys. What changed was one, time, you gave it time, and two, you put your own spin on it. You developed your own opinion of the city instead of what somebody else tells you. And I
Exactly,
mean,
which
like,
which I think is a very important thing. At one point in our lives, it was just what people were telling us. I think that's a broader issue with a lot of things. Figure stuff out on your own when you're capable of doing that because it's a much different experience.
it is. And I was thinking about my own experience. So I didn't go to Athens until I was 24 for the first time, and I hated it. And I had like no reason, I had zero reasons to hate it looking back. Like we were like just outside city center, right by a metro station. We went to the Laiki, we went to local restaurants, we went to Bazookia, and here I am just be like, it's just like you're dirty and gross because that was a perception that I went into it with. Like I didn't do any research. Like my now husband was born and raised there. Like I wasn't trying to do any research. I wasn't trying to figure it out. I was just like, he knows what's going on. Narrator, he did not indeed know what was going on. But like
Uh,
I was trusting him, to be like, this is the city. And to some degree, he did, but I didn't understand it.
I
And
feel
it's
like it was
like,
also a big culture shock for you too, right? The first time, because I mean, you didn't kind of come from any of that
no,
stuff, and
I came from zero of that stuff.
you're just like thrown in. I mean, that's a lot to take.
Well, you know what happened? My first trip to Greece was really a weird hybrid of stuff. So like we get to Athens, we get in a friend's car, we go down to the village, and my first experience in Greece is a teeny tiny village, which was also a culture shock to some degree, even though I'm from a small town. But so we did that. Then I was living like my best basic bitch life, and I was like, Mykonos, Santorini, like let's do it, doing that. And then we go to Athens, not by, any choice of mine. That's just where the family apartment is. And I'm just like, that was the shock to go from little village to Greek islands to Athens. And it's unexpected, but like again, like I didn't do any of my own research. Also, like being in your 20s, can we just like say real quick, like how like dumb of a decade that is of your life? Like how many decisions do you actually make on your own? How many? that you're like, this is my idea. It's like none,
Yeah.
right? Like, kind of.
Yeah.
I was
I
just
can
thinking
see
about that. I was like,
I
what
still
if
don't make my own decisions. So
but it was just like every opinion that you make is like coming from somewhere else. And I was like, why did I think that? But, and I was thinking about this, and it's like, and this is not a unique experience, you know? Almost everybody has that doesn't seek the city out on their own. But it's like the similar idea to like you can't appreciate how well a fish swims if you're so worried that it can't climb a tree.
hmm.
You know, like you have to understand that fish cannot climb trees before you can appreciate it. Kind of
Right.
like what you guys said about like understanding it on your own.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's a good analogy. I like that.
I'm gonna use it.
But it's like people will go to Paris and be like, Paris, you know, like before they even get there. And then like they see it in its reality, or like Rome or like Amsterdam. But
I
when you say Athens, they're just like we're just gonna like stop through it and go.
I heard that there's a whole entire like mental description of being let down specifically with Paris in the name, because so many people that go to Paris have this like wonderful image of it, and it's like such a letdown when they get there because they're expecting just this like romantic, because it's been used so often in rom-coms or movies or whatever, and there's literally a whole phrase for being let down that has Paris in the name. I can't remember off the top of my head, but look it up. It's kind of interesting. But it's exactly what you're saying right now.
Yeah, I completely agree with that so much. And I mean, the thing about anything, and Ari, you said this too, like this spans across your life, you know, like make your own decisions on stuff. And you know, I was trying to figure this out. I was like, how do I go from absolutely hating a city, talking mad trash about it, to 15 years later being like, I'm moving to Athens? Like, where, like, what happened in that
Love.
time frame?
And Ari, I looked it up for you. They call it the Paris syndrome.
Yes, that's it. Paris syndrome. But I mean, that applies to anywhere you go. That's like you're expecting something, and it's not like the way you expected it. But they call it the Paris syndrome. So
Kind of like hanging out with you.
yeah, you always think all these great things, and then when I get into the room, you're like, wah, wah.
Huge letdown.
Trombones playing behind me.
Yeah, but I think, you know, I don't think everybody gets the opportunity that we get to have this consolidated time with the city. And, you know, I was trying to think like where this transition of mine came through. One of it is time, but two of it was independent exploration. Like instead of relying on, you know, my husband or the family to be like, we're going here or we're going there, like it wasn't until I started going out on my own and seeing it for myself, making my own perceptions of the city and what was going on and sitting with it and watching with it and, you know, actually understanding what was going on there. And it, again, like that comes from time, but not everybody gets that time.
Right.
All right.
And you know, if so you're in the industry, so you're an expert on Greece and travel to Greece. Now you're going to be living there. So at some point there's going to be like the tables will turn where they're going to look to you to kind of figure out what to do and where to go. And that's an interesting I mean, I don't know your husband. I don't know like his personality, what kind of person he is, but at some point, like if it was me, I'd be like you figure out because like you're the expert. But he's from there, so it's like this odd like setup now because
It
you literally will
is.
be the expert.
It is, but it's like he doesn't. You know, I'm guilty of this myself. Like, I'm in Omaha, Nebraska currently. I don't know my own city anymore. I know Athens better than my own city. And, you know, like I sent a Instagram post to my sister-in-law the other day about a new restaurant in Belokopi, our neighborhood, and she's like, "Thank you, sister. I had no idea that that even existed."
That's
You
funny.
know, but it's like when you're in it and you're looking for it and you're trying to, see what's new, see what's going on. And I think I used to do that in my city, but I don't anymore. It's not of interest to me. But like you just like you move through life, like think about how you move through life currently. Like you have a routine. You drive this route to here, and then you do this thing with the kids, and then you pick up dinner here, and then you drive home, and then you do like whatever you have, like you have a routine.
The human psyche kind of its natural way is to kind of take for granted what is readily available to you. You know, it's like those people who live in New York and a tourist will come and be like, I went to the Statue of Liberty, I went to Empire State Building, I went. They're like, we don't do these things because we live here, we're from here. But everybody could make use of where they are and kind of learn more about it. I just wanted to say that like kind of an aside because appreciate what you have. It's like, oh, I wish we go back to the good old days, but when they were the good old days, you didn't realize they were the good old days. So just appreciate where you are, appreciate where in time you are, appreciate life. That's my
Well, well,
philosophy.
This is deep, Ari.
Melissa's going to help us appreciate, I think, Athens more.
Well,
Oh yeah, for sure.
I've also been thinking deeply, Ari. Softly. Um, and I was thinking about my relationship with the city, like what it is now and how it's going to change once I move. Like it kind of feels like one of those things like when you're like seriously dating somebody and then you're like, we should move in together. And then you're like, yeah. And then all of a sudden you're just like, oh my God, like you're breathing like extremely loud. Please stop breathing. And I'm just like, I wonder like what I'm gonna be annoyed by, what I'm gonna find out that like I really hate, what is, but also like that's the point. Like the point is for it to be different. Like I have lived this chapter of my life long enough. Like, and there are things that I love, there are things that I'm annoyed by, but like I want to love new things. I want to be annoyed by new things. I want to kind of play that out.
Well,
But yeah, to choose Athens is definitely nothing that you could have convinced me of 15 years ago. Never, never, never.
it sounds like you have, emotional maturity where instead of seeing things that may be difficult or may be annoying or may not jive with what you want, you're willing to accept it and learn from it, whatever. That's emotional maturity. If more people were like that, it would be a lot better for relationships. Why is he breathing so loud? Well, you should understand that everybody's different, so there are going to be things. And the people that can understand that can have a successful relationship. The people that don't understand that are the ones that get divorced or break up or whatever. So it's good that you know that these problems will arise, but you're willing to like face them head on and deal with them and accept them or figure out how to deal with them,
Embracing them, huh?
embrace.
And
Mm.
I think, like you said it in a roundabout philosophical way, but expectations are everything. Like going into the city and understanding that it's not Paris, it's not Amsterdam, like it's its own thing. Like, yes, there is graffiti everywhere. Like, yes,
Mhm.
it's hot, but like expect it to be hot. Like it's August, for fuck's sake, Like if you don't want that, like go at a different time, but don't like chastise the city because it's hot in August. Like, make better choices,
Yeah,
have better expectations, like, be realistic. Don't
have an
like go into there with
understanding.
like this Instagram influencer mindset and being like, Athens is for me, and if it's not exactly what I want, then I'm gonna be mad about it and say skip it instead of actually giving it time. But again, most people do not get that opportunity. Like it was forced on me multiple times. And then like I learned to work with it, learned to love it, learned the city. But like if somebody told me more, realistic expectations before I went into it the first time, like I would have saved myself a lot of discomfort.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so all right, let's so we have our experiences, with Athens. Now, what where does this go? Like you're moving there. What is kind of like your vision now that you're going to be there? What is your thought on the city itself? Um, as a resident, like these are your thoughts as somebody who's working on bringing people there, but now you're going to be living there. So what's that thought process going to
And if
be?
I can add, out of all the places that you could move to in Greece, why Athens?
Yeah, that's guys, these are deep questions.
Well, you,
You know, I've thought so much about this in different ways and roundabout reasons and this and that. But Athens is an international city. There's so many different people there. And Ari, you mentioned it before, like the creative energy that is coming out of that city, incredible. The artists, the musicians, the painters, the architects, the people that are reviving old buildings and keeping the culture intact. I think it's endlessly interesting. The food scene, phenomenal. A lot of the new stuff that you see coming in it's Greek inspired, but they'll do like kind of like a fusion with their other outside experience. Like if they were in, if they studied culinary school in Japan, then like now we have like this Japanese Greek fusion restaurant of some kind, but like they keep the culture intact to some degree and then they add their own flavor. And I think, coming from a small town myself, I understand that mentality and I can see that, of course in the villages, but also like if you intentionally choose to live on an island, I think that that is like a different kind of wild. I think that is like insanely wild, like especially a small island to choose to be like in that little space. And, if, you need to go somewhere, like you have to rely on the ferry schedules or whatever. But I also think that it's a completely different vibe. And maybe like there's different versions of myself in different places of Greece, but I feel like the islands are like a little bit more like the real islands, not the tourism facade islands,
Mhm.
but like there's more of a almost like dedication to tradition and like a little bit more conservative. Where when you get into Athens, you're like, okay, we have, street parties and like really edgy art and, things happening in the city that you can't find in the villages or the islands.
Well, you definitely described how humans kind of form together. It's the cities that are more like open and liberal and like accommodating for new things or different people or different styles, different cultures, blah blah blah. And it's the outskirts and the outside rural type of things that are more conservative and whatever. So I mean that literally hits it right on the head of how just humans kind of come together in a society. That it kind of just that's how it is, right?
Exactly. And I mean, and for me, like business speaking, my opportunities are going to be in Athens, at least to begin with. And I know me, like I can be really fickle and get bored. Like honestly, I see Athens as a stepping stone to something else. I do not think that I will be there forever. I always want to change, honestly. And if it gets like, I don't like really feel like doing this anymore, like I'll go somewhere else. But that's what's also awesome about Greece is how varied it is. Like, and it's not hard to get anywhere different, like drive 4 hours, drive 8 hours, like you were in a completely different experience. It's not like living in Omaha, Nebraska, where you drive 8 hours and you're just like, I'm in the same fucking place.
Right.
So yeah, just the opportunities to be in Athens and connect with people and meet with people. Like I posted something on my Instagram the other day. Like I finally said, like, hey guys, I'm moving because I realized I hadn't done that yet. And people are like, oh, we're gonna meet there, we're gonna be there. And they're like in California, they're in South Carolina, they're in Texas. It's like it is easier for me to meet up with my, adult friends that I have, curated at this point in my life all over the world. It is easier for me to be with them in Athens than it is here in Omaha, Nebraska, where like I could just fly an hour to Chicago and see somebody, but I'm not going to. I'll see him in Athens.
Yeah. I mean that's definitely something that we've spoken about before. We were like, if we moved to Greece, we'd probably see some of our friends more often than we do living in the same country here. So I totally agree with that. Because
Exactly.
it's like, going specifically to meet up with your friends is like a one thing. But meeting up in Athens, it's like its own draw, and then you get to meet up with your friends. So there's more to it. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
Exactly. And it's from a tourism perspective. I have had lots of deep thoughts about this as well. What tourism is doing negatively to Athens and the country in general, but it's not everywhere. It's, particular neighborhoods that are seeing this gentrification. And like there's a lot of backlash on Airbnbs, which makes a ton of sense because the locals cannot find places to live because everybody's just using their properties as rental properties,
Right.
which again, like that is very consolidated in the city center. And it's like I hear people be like, "Well, I'm not gonna book an Airbnb." Well, it's like that doesn't change the situation because they're not gonna stop. Somebody else is gonna use the Airbnb if you don't. Like there
Mhm.
has to be like overarching regulation on it before something changes.
Right.
Good points. Good point.
But also like I think that there's a misunderstanding about, what the tourism areas of Athens are and what they aren't. Like I had my friend Elias Cosmides posted on Instagram the other day about like what's your favorite suburb of Athens? And of course, like I'm trolling through the comments, like, what are people saying? What do we got here? Do you know how many people said Plaka? Plaka is not a suburb, my friend. Plaka is as middle as you can get.
Yeah.
Like there's a
Well,
total misunderstanding. And like,
yeah.
yeah, Plaka is great, but like, yeah, like if we're talking about gentrification of a city, like that poor little city center, I swear to God.
I mean, and how many people walk through that center?
So many.
Oh my
Actually, it
God.
hurts me to walk through it anymore. As somebody
Yeah.
who does not like crowds and people,
Right.
walking through Plaka is not easy for me to do.
Yeah.
And
Especially,
it's sad. And I mean, like saying that during the summer, like if you're going during the off season, totally different story.
Mm.
Totally different story.
I've only experienced the block experience during the summers because obviously that's the time we can only go. Which I think most of who are listening probably have done the same or are considering going to Greece July, August. I
Well,
mean,
I'll say that I've been there in the winter, and when you say a different experience, gee, it is a
yeah.
completely different experience. My whole winter trip to Greece was like I went to a new place. I wasn't in the same place that
Yeah.
I've been going to.
No, it's totally different. Like I remember being there the last time I was there in November and I was walking down the street and I hear all these kids and I was like, what is going on? And like, oh, it's school. School is in
Mm,
session. Or like you see like parents, taking their kids back and forth to school and like everything is just like closed up a little bit different, but like people are still sitting outside. Like you get to do different things in the winter. Like I would not hike up Filopapu Hill in August, but I will absolutely do that in a November, December,
Right.
January. Like you do different things as well.
Right. Right.
wow. I mean, you've given us so many reasons, in my opinion, to be in Athens all year round, not just July and August, right? Um, but as far as Melissa, things that are happening in Athens, I noticed you mentioned on social media. I can't tell you how many posts I start seeing about really cool spots in the foodie industry, like the foodies that are out there. The cocktail bar scene in Athens is explosive. That, I remember as a young kid, well, a young kid, but as someone that was kind of able to drink, uh, back then, like, we didn't really like drinking cocktails in Greece because they were awful. They didn't have good ingredients. They had really poor, shitty spirits. And it was just basically, beer was the thing to do. But now, the progression of, the food scene and the cocktail bar scene and the cafes and the bakeries.
Yes. Yes.
Geez.
And I mean, I feel like Athens has gone through a lot of shit in the last 70 years. Like they really like they get going and then something weird happens. Like they get going and something weird happens. And so, you know, like I hate to take an opinion of a local too seriously because they have a lot of hate towards the city for like what the government has done to them, what has happened, like in the 70s, especially. And like they have like this weird inferiority complex to the rest of Europe. And so like they almost like drive the point home to people like, yeah, like we're not as good as Paris or Amsterdam because like they believe it in their hearts, like they're behind, like they always feel like they're behind the rest of Europe in some way. Like, oh, like there's this like amazing train in Finland, or like their system of this, or like their paperwork of that, or, they have their tourism under control, or, like whatever it is. Like, I feel like they're always being like, well, we're just like not good enough. And, like with the architectural standpoint, again, like that was a necessity. That was a post-war need, all of these, quote unquote, ugly apartment buildings. That was a need that had to be filled. And if you look at like the story of how that even happened, who stepped up to make these apartments happen, like it was just like regular people that like had these regular jobs. Like all of a sudden, like construction people were, like managing properties, and all of like the people that were managing properties were now like, like everybody stepped up to make this stuff happen. And very few architects were involved at all because they couldn't be, like it had to be so quick. And so like, all of these neoclassical buildings got, demolished for the sake of making space for all these people that were coming into the city. And so, then you have these architects coming in from, France. I mean, like, this is just like an ugly city. Like, there is no architecture, no design at all. Ugh. And like, but then like they stole the neoclassical design from Greece to begin with. Like they took it, they used it, Greece knocked it down, and then they come in and be like, yeah, Athens, you are ugly. But like, and then Athens is like, oh my God, we are ugly, and like don't even take any credit for their influence on the rest of Europe.
Hmm.
Sorry,
Interesting.
that's like a completely different tangent. But it's like if people understand that about like these apartment buildings that are everywhere,
Yeah.
like I think that that's an important piece of the puzzle as well.
Man, I mean, we this podcast should evolve into a psychological profile of because there's so much that goes into all these things. But
It is. I think we definitely need another episode on Athens because I could go
100%.
on
oh
for
yeah, for
forever. So
sure. I mean, there's lots of stuff that we haven't even touched upon that it would be good to talk about. But anyway,
Well, if I can ask Melissa, not offline, I'm going to Greece this summer. Gonna make it a point to hang in Athens for a bit, so maybe you can give me some pointers.
I could do that.
Yeah, for sure.
We could do
Uh,
that. When are you coming? When are you going to be here? There? What? Sorry, I'm like
uh,
being so confusing. I swear to God,
of
I'm still in Omaha.
sometime for myself, mid-July, sometime
Okay,
mid-July. During, I like to get there when it's extremely hot, scorching hot.
excellent. Yes.
Because
Likewise. Well, I'll probably see you there then if you'll be there
cool.
for a month or two.
Oh, at least for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Yeah,
Oh, well, maybe. We'll see
we'll
what
see.
happens. But
Cool.
yeah, if not this year, then next year. So
Of course.
All right. Yes,
course.
Ari, you're right. This should be renamed to some deep psychological
We talked a lot of philosophical and deep thoughts, which, you know,
That's
it meshes well with speaking of Greece.
that's what happens when you connect with Greeks. You get all philosophical.
it's true. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
You
Right.
don't have a choice. So no, thank you for the conversation, you guys. I always enjoy it. So
Thank you.
Likewise.
And we will speak. I don't know when, but next time, not too long, I'm assuming, unless you're completely shut down with the move.
I don't know. I'll yeah, I don't know. I will let's divert that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Well, anyway, stay tuned in the
Stay
notes
tuned.
and everything, and we'll announce our next episode. But yeah, thank you, Melissa.
Thank you,
Sounds
Melissa.
good. Thank you, Ari and Foti, not Foti and Ari.
The correct way. Thank you.
All right. Bye,
See you
guys.
guys. Take care.